Light work. It begins, as all feelings do, with a supposition. There is an unseen dimension to life. On a canvas she raised in the desert, through a lens pointing out to the sea, she works like a dancer, moving inside the light. And in this dream she catches sounds behind the wind, with colours we had not seen. Until now, light workers. To mark the end of lockdown, Lightworks is a sort of lyrical show that was conceived to bring us out into the light. It's a point of connection, which is something we've all been missing. We have been interacting mostly like this, in sort of digital colour, for the best part of a year. And in fact, that's how we all came together for this show. The artist Andrea Hamilton has been studying light for the best part of 20 years, building this huge archive of C-chroma, raw capture, unphotoshopped digital files. And on the same street as Andrea is the artist Aigana Gali. And she has previously been doing these sort of huge sort of colour field works, very much informed by the steppe where she comes from in Kazakhstan. And they met on the same street and discovered that both of them, even though they were working in very different medias, were both very interested in the light and how light interacts with the world, and further how it makes us feel, how certain colours highlight or amplify emotions. So they decided to do this show together, and they asked me very kindly to curate it for them. And then we had the wonderful Elisabetta Cipriani, who brought this element into the show of deep time, which was manifest in these small, beautiful works of art. They're wearable art sculptures. And so Elisabetta came into this show and brought something very concrete, something very tangible. So you have this wonderful sort of interplay and conversation between these elements that have been brought in, and then we have stories of art who have been invited in, who have curated a sort of series of fantastic art lectures, and finally a special project space by Maya Sanbar, who's going to be doing an installation. So it's been this very kind of organic coming together.
So I grew up in Mexico City, and we spent the weekends going to the sea. One weekend I was swimming with my father and godfather, and I got caught in an undertow and basically was sucked down. And I remember just being very at peace and, you know, looking up to the light, and it was soft. And that's all I remember. And then afterwards I was resuscitated on the beach. But I think that first impression for me of this peaceful place stuck with me. And then as I grew a little bit older, swimming underneath the water and looking at the corals and the light, and just being really, really happy and actually really believing that I was sort of part mermaid. After that, my family bought a place in Florida, and we were always going to the same place. And for me, I think I wanted to start to try to express the feelings I had with my relationship to the sea through my photography, but it became more of a sort of request for language. I wanted to find a way to express what we all feel in some sort of universal language. So I started to document the sea color like you would in the 19th century, the temperature, the weather, and then I started to look for the words and the poetry, writing, songs, music that might correlate with that particular scene. And it became, you know, a 20-year project, a full-time project for almost 6 years now. Philosophically, I'm very drawn towards Zen Buddhism, and I've traveled to Japan a lot. And for the Japanese, water is a sort of, it represents purity and calmness and clarity. I would say, I mean, there's a lot of inspiration for me with the sea, but I think in particular, I do feel it's sort of a form of resetting your emotional barometer. It's this form of meditation for most people. So I would say that's probably my main influence. There's been a lot of scientific studies as to whether water itself holds memory just in its physical state. So I think that's an interesting parallel, because there's the water itself holding memory, and there's our memories, obviously, of the sea over time. As I've been photographing the same spot for 20 years, it's fascinating, because in this process of trying to name these seas, there's all sorts of patterns emerging, and we know that there's a lot of frequencies and patterns in nature, things like the tidal movements, the moons, and I feel there's something fascinating with that, and in our memory as well, the memory of our emotions and feelings. And so it's something I'm looking at quite closely now. In the beginning, I was very much a black and white photographer and a darkroom printer, and I didn't love color photography at all. And I would say generally I was quite Agnes Martin about my colors. I mean, I love very pale washes of pastel. And so when I moved into color, I started to take scenes that were quite monochromatic and pale tones. And as I've researched and learned more and more about color, I think that I'm growing more confident and willing to be more bold. And I don't know if that's what happens as you get older and you get more, you understand yourself better. But I think my preferred palette is usually going to be a pale palette. But I've definitely changed, and I've become more courageous and more loving of vibrant colors. When I first saw Aigana's Tengri paintings, I was immediately, I was really stopped in my tracks, because I'm a huge follower of the School of Theosophy and of Hilma of Klint. So I felt a deep connection to Aigana's work and the sense of light and color, and also to her as a person. And she explained to me that these paintings were just being given to her, you know, and she was just reacting. And I think there is a sense of this, a sort of spiritual style, which isn't completely abstract. It's linked to geometry and notions of light. So I think the work is extremely beautiful.
Step laid the groundwork for the new body of work called Tengri Lightworks, and I find it very symbolic, the fact that I've been working for 10 years daily on these large empty canvases where I practiced layering light and color. And after having this experience, I would say that I was ready to deliver a very precise message. They're completely different from everything what I've done before. They're very precise, almost mathematically. All my previous work were very spontaneous and emotional. And Tengri is something which is very clear, and I'm saying something very precise. I have to say that I'm coming from Kazakhstan. It's a land of steppes and mountains, of beautiful, vast, natural, empty spaces. So for someone who doesn't know what steppes are, they're half desert with a very low vegetation. And I've spent some time living in the steppe for a film project. And at this moment, I've realized that for me as a painter, it would be an amazing challenge to paint this enormous theater of light and color and reflect it on my canvases. So Tengri, for me it's difficult to call this a religion. Tengri is a very old Turkic Mongol philosophy, which is difficult to describe in words, but it's mostly about how everything comes from nothing and departs to nothing as well, and how we are all united in this world. We are only separated by the physical body. It was a beautiful moment when I moved into my new atelier, and it happened to be that across the road there is a studio of another artist, Andrea Hamilton, and when I saw her work and she saw mine, It was like a beautiful moment of recognition. We are coming from completely different cultures, completely different countries, and we were transfixed with the beauty of a natural world. Sea and the steppes, this open, barren lands, they're very similar in terms of energy. You're facing this infinite emptiness and a perfection of natural world. This beautiful sentence by Lao Tzu, "No one can pass the gateless gate, so be no one." In this sentence, for me, the gateless gate means the absolute truth, which we can only reach when we go inward. Throughout the exhibition, you will see many of my hand-painted coats. They're part of the manifestations art couture. And at one of the exhibitions last year, Elisabetta Cipriani saw one of the coats, and she, as all the visionaries do, she got inspired, and she said that we absolutely must create a jewelry piece out of this design. It's absolutely amazing how we can hide from the problems and kind of build a wall, but we always have a choice to act on whatever we see. So it's me saying that leap from the heart, stop thinking practically and act as a hero. This exhibition, the art curation came from Nico, and unfortunately Nico had some health issues and she stayed at home all this time but was holding our hands virtually. And Nico is a beautiful poet who kind of summarized the idea of the exhibition in the beautiful poetry which we will be able to read throughout the exhibition. And this exhibition is a 100% female group of artists united in one space. And we talk a lot about kind of inviting people back from the isolation to a new, safer world. It's almost like a first step in coming back to normality in a very feminine way.
Since I was very little, I was passionate about jewelry, traditional jewelry. Then I moved to contemporary art. I worked for a museum of contemporary art in Rome, where I was a co-curator and organizing wonderful exhibitions with international visual artists. And when I moved to London 17 years ago, I discovered jewelry made by Lucio Fontana, Man Ray, Picasso, André Derain, and I was so fascinated that these artists were creating sculptures that you could wear in a different medium, like gold. So I thought that this world of wearable art wasn't so much known back then, and I started to invite the artists that I met in Rome to collaborate with me to design and realize for the first time a jewel. And this is how I started, and now I work with 30 artists or more, international. I've selected 3 themes for the exhibition: water, geometric poetry and color, and earth. For water, we've got glass, we've got pearls, we've got animals like the octopus, and for color we have the beautiful Sonia Delaunay pendant brooch, or the Carlos Cruz Diez kinetic pendant. Geometric poetry, you've got Ute Decker and John Moore, beautiful lines. And for the earth, you will see Giorgio Bigna's beautiful sassy stone brooches. All of these artists have created this wonderful wearable art which have references to these themes. I'm very excited to present Totem Necklace Hero by Aigana Gali. It's been a long conversation between me and her to do for the first time a wearable art piece. She does couture wearable art, but not wearable art in terms of jewelry using a different medium. So it was very exciting to collaborate in this new adventure with her. The necklace has been inspired by traditional nomadic women warriors from the ancient times. It's set vertically like a totem column in various layers, and each layer has a meaning behind it, which I would like you to come to the show and have a look at it, or go into the gallery website and read about it. When you actually wear this beautiful necklace, it gives you power and strength, and you become the hero. From a feminine point of view, you feel different and special because you're not following a fashion but a concept of wearing a sculpture with a story behind. Well, I'm working with Yup Valley South on a new project. It's going to be a bracelet. It's been a year that we've been working on this project, so who knows when we're going to finish it. But my gallery is in 23 Haddon Street in London, and you can come and see this wonderful wearable art whenever you want.
When COVID took off, we were forced to move online. It was part of my long-term strategy, but without any preparations, we had to give lectures on Zoom. Before COVID, it was London-focused company. A year ago, we slowly turned into international company. Now we have clients all over the world, as far as Bolivia and Mumbai. We even have someone in Shanghai. Lectures are very important to us, and to me personally, I'm interested in storytelling. I'm interested in stories that the audience will remember and will retell them later. But at the same time, the scholastic side of it is important to me personally. I'm looking for scholars, I'm looking for professional art historians. For example, Dr. Jacqueline Cockburn, she taught at Westminster School for 20 years. So she's used to speaking to teenagers, to draw something out of them. And she's a bit of a drama actress, and I love that about her. Ed Lisson, he's a young, very dynamic guy, and the way he speaks, he always brings current issues. He could compare Goga to current Me Too issues. So lecturers are very important for stories of art. Aigana, she's originally from Kazakhstan, as I am myself as well. So when I met Aigana, I was quite fascinated by her art, by her way of looking at the world, at art, and quite often we discuss Tengri, because in Kazakhstan he is a god of sky. We quite often have deep metaphysical questions on various subjects, so I love to see her grow, I love to see her develop and express of herself in so many different ways. Live and online. Live, of course, it's very important to me and to stories of art, because not only there is an academic side to it, there is also a social aspect. So half an hour before lecture we have breakfast, or we have cocktail and drinks, and I do introduce people to each other, because people join my course for a year from September to June, so they slowly become friends, and we discussed various different subjects. So I managed to recreate this virtual coffee. So for 15 minutes before lectures begin on Zoom, we have a gallery view, and I ask question, what's happening in Mumbai? How's COVID in Bolivia? What is happening in Shanghai? So it's just kind of like interesting to see the view and opinion of people around the world.
Just a little bit about what it's been like working remotely with such generous artists and thinkers. Anybody who knows me knows that I've been working with Andrea for an incredible long time on the colour project. She invited me in to help her research all the different dimensions of colour, colour theory, the monochromatic hues that she captured. And when she introduced me to Aigana, again, we didn't have the opportunity to meet in person, but she is a deeply listening person, just as Andrea is, and seems to have a sort of real sense of the unseen. And so she communicated to me in a way that felt almost, and a difficult word to say, but it felt like there was a sort of universal consciousness at work in this show. Whilst I was going through my then journey of recovering from this accident, all the artists, Aigana, Andrea, and then Elisabetta, and finally Maya, have been sending me messages, and I've been writing poetry for them. And it's become a sort of healing process. And that has been such an incredible experience as a curator. I'm so, so grateful to all the artists for having allowed me to continue working despite this accident, and even finally letting me send these letters, these sort of poetic love letters to them. I'm going to finish with this, this poem by Rebecca Elson. It's called Let There Be Light. For this we go out dark nights, searching for the dimmest stars, for signs of unseen things, to weigh us down, to stop the universe from rushing on and on into its own beyond until it exhausts itself and lies down cold, its last star going out. Whatever they turn out to be, let there be swarms of them, enough for immortality, always a star where we can warm ourselves. Let there be enough to bring it back from its own edges, to bring us all so close that we can ignite the bright spark of resurrection.